I'm John Little, and this is the ShockCast.
Altitude, velocity, light. 8.5 down, 220 feet. 15 forward. 11 forward, coming down nicely.
Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here.
Yesterday, I introduced to you the idea that Iran is completely insane. And the last 40 years has demonstrated that they did lose their minds. Hostage-taking, terrorism, proxy conflicts, and suicide attacks. Iran has done all of that and more for incomprehensible reasons. However, we now know that Iran is following a script. They are playing a role that they believe to have been laid out in Shia eschatology over 1,000 years ago. We talked about it yesterday, but now we need to look more closely at the details. Before we launch into the specifics of Iran's insanity, let me provide you with Exhibit A as the latest evidence of Iran dementia. Iran shot down a U.S. $130 million drone over international waters. That was on Thursday. Prior to that, 6 tankers had been attacked by limpet mines. We were wondering if those tanker attacks were false flag operations. Well, Iran just proved that they really did those tanker attacks by shooting down that drone. If Iran had been trying to avoid being accused of those tanker attacks, that drone would still be flying, even if it had been in their airspace. Please understand that if you are trying to de-escalate a situation like this, you will bend over backwards to avoid conflict. But Iran doesn't want to de-escalate. Why? Because Iran wants a war. That sounds crazy, I know. But if you saw yesterday's article and video, you would have some inkling that her insanity is connected to the Twelver Shiism of Iran's leadership. They believe that they have the opportunity and obligation to create the right conditions in the world to bring back the 12th Imam. And that means World War III. And no, they do not care about how many Iranians will die in the process. If you saw how Iranians cleared minefields during the Iran-Iraq War of the 1980s using boys and old men to walk through them, you would understand that dead Iranians means nothing to them. This is holy war, and dying in it gets you sent straight to heaven. Oh, and let me point out that Iran undoubtedly believes that the United States will lose any land war with Iran. Our own military has acknowledged that Iran is almost impossible to successfully invade. Iran's mountains make it extremely difficult for any invasion or any invading army to succeed. So, Iran would be more than happy to goad America into direct conflict. And if America delays in neutralizing Iran's nuclear weapons capability, well, you would have a recipe for global devastation. Iran will use any nukes that they have or will get, and the only reason why they would hold off in using them would be the expectation that they will get more, to create more havoc and destruction. The good news is that Bible prophecy seems to indicate that most of Iran's nuclear weapons capability will be attacked and destroyed. And I suspect that it will be Donald Trump who will do it. And it will probably be soon, since Iran has declared that it will have surpassed the amount of enriched uranium allowed under the previous nuclear deal made by Obama, the JCPOA. If Iran didn't want a war, why are they accelerating the enrichment of uranium and telling everyone about it? But let's ignore that question and ask a different one. If Iran had lots of nuclear weapons, wouldn't they be the leaders of Gog and Magog instead of just one of the participants? Would there even be a Gog and Magog if Iran had nuclear weapons? That's a lot of supposition and what if, but I believe that there is a reason why Iran is just a member of the Gog and Magog coalition instead of leading it. Furthermore, I believe that Iran will be hopping mad at the humiliation of having their nuclear weapons production bombed flat by the United States. They will want revenge, and Russia, Turkey, and the stans of Central Asia will give them opportunity to get their revenge. Again, if Iran had nukes, there would be no coming of Gog and Magog. As I mentioned last time, we have a glimmer of what is to come in this article from Michael Snyder, titled Jerusalem Post, U.S. bombing of Iran will be massive but will be limited to a specific target, from endoftheamericandream.com. Any rational president will look at the evidence of what Iran is doing and see no other choice. You just cannot allow 12er Shia Muslims to have nuclear weapons. And yes, as I said last time, these people really are worse than Hitler. When I get done showing you the details, you will agree. Oh, and by the way, this doesn't mean that Iran won't get any nukes. They just won't have enough to do all that they want to do. They still might have a sufficient number of nukes to launch an EMP attack upon the United States and kill up to 90% of the American population. I personally believe that a nuclear EMP strike is the reason why America can't stop Gog and Magog. I wrote about this particular scenario 12 years ago as an intellectual exercise. Iran was making confident claims in 2007, so I decided to see how those extravagant declarations could be realized. That intellectual exercise can be found here. It's an article titled Doomsday, and you can find it on IsraelOutlook.com. Fast forward almost 4 years from my 2007 Doomsday article to April 5th, 2011, when I saw the last segment of the Glenn Beck show, broadcast on March 31st, 2011. It's this one. It's titled, the YouTube is titled Glenn Beck, 3/31/2011, Iranian regime preparing for 12th Imam, Part 3. It was as if the Iranians had been reading my Doomsday article and decided that this was a great idea. That video also made me reread my Doomsday piece and analyze my accuracy. The result was posted here, Doomsday Redux, also on IsraelOutlook.com. I'm afraid that I was rather accurate, far too accurate, and it led me to realize that all of you were in huge trouble. That realization was what launched a megashock. But maybe you aren't so sure about all that I've said so far, so let's get into some of those 12er Shia details that I promised to give you. Let's start with that segment of the Glenn Beck show that caused my head to explode 8 years ago. One of the guests in that segment was ex-CIA agent Reza Khalili, and it was his words that grabbed me by the throat. Quote, "Ever since I started to spy on the Islamic government and report on their activities, their terrorist expansion, their collaboration with all the terrorist groups around the world, and their intention to ultimately destroy Israel, because that's a key element, it's a mandate of a centuries-old hadith to take place so the Mahdi will return. So I would state here that they are committed to this ideology, and just because many in the West cannot understand it, it doesn't mean that it's not real. And these are the same people who are pursuing the nuclear bomb. And I assure you that they intend to attack Israel, destroy Israel, and they're looking for the glorification of Allah worldwide. And this documentary is the blueprint of their ideology, and they had no intention for this to go public. I was alerted by my contacts in the Revolutionary Guard several months ago that the project was approved by the Iranian President Ahmadinejad and Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, produced by the Basij militias to be distributed throughout the Middle East, incite more uprising, overthrow US-backed governments, calling for unification of Arabs, promising the destruction of Israel is imminent, and therefore the imminent coming of the Imam Mahdi. Now this is all because we have an administration that is inept, weak, and confused. They can sense this and have become emboldened and excited by the events in the Middle East." Close quote. Khalili later went on to add, quote, "You see, I have described it clearly in my book. These people, Ayatollah Khamenei, even Ayatollah Khomeini, the founder of the Islamic Revolution, before the revolution, he stated he had 3 goals for Iran. One was to overthrow the Shah, the other was to establish an Islamic state, and third was to pass the flag of Islam to the last Messiah. It has been their intention. They have acted upon it, and we have failed to understand this. Close quote. Well, Khalili ends with this bombshell. Quote, the hadith says that 72 months prior to the reappearance of the Imam Mahdi, this mythical figure, the Shoaib ibn Saleh, takes power. And they say this mythical figure is Ahmadinejad. So Ahmadinejad has been in office for over 5 years. That gives us a year timeline. They're clearly telling us that within a year they're going to create the circumstances needed for the Imam Mahdi to come. And we better understand this. They've got over 1,000 ballistic missiles right now. Close quote. Note, thankfully, they were unable to follow their timeline. Someone inside the Iranian leadership must have decided that Ahmadinejad was not the Shoaib ibn Saleh. But there's more. Oh, so much more. And it's in this video that I introduced to you last time. And it's called The Coming is Upon Us. Translation, Reza Khalili, author of A Time to Betray, atimetoBetray.com. If you haven't watched that video yet, you need to. It's important. Now, I could drag you through all 28 minutes of that video, and it would be worth it. But I'll spare you. And just quote a synopsis that appeared in an article on frontpagemag.com. Quote, the documentary claims that Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei is the Sayyid Khorasani, talked about in the hadith that leads a nation in the East, Iran, as the preparer for the Mahdi's intervention. In July 2010, a senior Iranian cleric revealed that Khamenei had told close associates that he had privately met with the Mahdi and was told that he'd arrive before his time as supreme leader ends. Khamenei is 71 years old and widely understood to be in poor health, so the grand jihad that Khamenei believes he must command must come soon. President Ahmadinejad is an end-times character named Shoaib ibn Saleh, the film states. He is appointed as the commander-in-chief by Sayyid Khorasani, the Ayatollah Khamenei. The speaker in the film says that this individual will move 72 months prior to the arrival of the Mahdi and will lead the recapturing of Jerusalem on the threshold of the coming. It is unclear if move means a physical action by Ahmadinejad or if it means his coming to power in 2005. If it is the latter, then the regime believes the Mahdi is to appear by the end of this year. Of course, he's writing in 2011. Continuing on, also mentioned is military commander called Yamani, who is to form the army of the Mahdi that will march to Mecca in Saudi Arabia. The film teaches that this is the leader of the Hezbollah, Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah. These three prophesied Islamic leaders are to wage a war against the Antichrist and the impostors, which are said to be the United States, Israel, and their allies, including Arab leaders. The current uprisings in the Arab world are viewed as the fulfillment of prophecy and confirmation that they are to wage this final war against the enemies of Islam. The film states that the invasion of Iraq was foretold, as Imam Ali said that they, the enemies of Islam, will conquer Iraq and through bloodshed create divisions in tribes and at that time be ready for the reappearance of the last Messiah, Imam Mahdi. The Iranian-backed Houthi rebellion in Yemen is referred to as a holy revolution, and the removal of Egyptian President Mubarak are also end times events. From, close quote, and it's from Iran's end times documentary, frontpagemag.com. Back in April of 2011, all of that made my head explode. It also led to the eventual beginning of Omega Shock a few months later, in August of that year. It also charted a course through some incredible red pill moments, and I have this Iranian threat to thank for that. Unfortunately, the threat from Iran is not hysteria, it's cold, hard fact. Yes, it sounds insane, but these people are insane. They are insane with that uniquely Twelver Shiite madness, and they thoroughly believe in this craziness. They believe that Ayatollah Khamenei is the Sayyid Khorasani, and that he has spoken directly with the Mahdi. They believe that someone in their leadership is the Shoaib ibn Saleh. They believe that Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah is the Yamani who will invade Saudi Arabia and capture Mecca. They believe that America fulfilled one prophecy by invading Iraq. They believe that the Houthi-led civil war in Yemen is another fulfillment of prophecy. Even the ousting of Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak is a part of their prophecies. All of that tells you why Iran is fiercely supporting the Houthi rebellion in Yemen. It tells you why the Ayatollah Khamenei is intent on war with the United States, because he believes that he has spoken with the Mahdi directly, and that he is the Sayyid Khorasani. And Iran knows that it is almost impossible for America to successfully invade Iran. The bottom line is this: if you want to survive the insanity that Iran is about to unleash upon the world, you had better take their diabolical eschatology seriously. Iran is devoted to bringing back the 12th Imam, and they plan to use nuclear weapons to do it, while drowning the world in blood. If you doubt me, you do so at your own risk. Hey, you like that video, right? Great. Click like and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified. Then go to the next level. Subscribe to the Shock Letter at theshockletter.com and follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Now, read my book, Ezekiel's Fire, at ezekielsfire.com. Why? Because Ezekiel's Fire is coming.